Once upon a time, behind 7 hills, there lived a lovely little girl named Snow White. Her skin was as white as snow, her lips as red as blood, and her hair as black as ebony. Snow White had a wicked stepmother who was a beautiful but vain queen. The queen possessed a magical mirror to which she would ask daily, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror would always reply, "You, my queen, are the fairest in the land." But one day, the mirror answered, "Queen, you are beautiful, it's true, but Snow White is 1,000 times more beautiful." Upon hearing this, the queen turned red with fury. She summoned a huntsman and ordered him to take Snow White into the forest and kill her. However, the huntsman's heart melted, and he let Snow White go, bringing the queen the heart of a wild boar instead as proof of fulfilling her command. Alone in the forest, Snow White was afraid and ran until she reached a small house. Inside lived 7 little dwarfs who worked in the mines. Snow White told them her story, and they allowed her to stay and care for her as long as she took care of their home. Meanwhile, the queen discovered that Snow White was still alive. Filled with rage, she disguised herself as an old woman and went to Snow White's house. She gave Snow White a poisoned apple, and as soon as Snow White took a bite, she fell to the ground as if dead. When the dwarfs returned home, they found Snow White dead and were very sad. They placed her in a glass coffin so they could always see her. One day, a prince passed through the forest and saw the sleeping Snow White in the glass coffin. He was so captivated by her beauty that he asked the dwarfs for permission to take her with him. As servants were lifting the coffin, the piece of poisoned apple dislodged from Snow White's throat, and she awoke. The prince was deeply in love with Snow White and asked her to marry him. Snow White happily accepted, and they returned to the castle and lived happily ever after. When the queen learned that Snow White was still alive and about to marry a prince, she went mad with rage and perished in her own evilness. And so, Snow White and the prince lived happily ever after.